Bam. Share your screen with your audience. So I don't think I have an audience yet. I think we need a plus up here though. Yee, well, this is going to be interesting. Let me get dialed in. And I kind of miss all the stuff I used to have. I kind of miss my music and all that stuff that I used to be able to do. Let's bring this down and up a little bit. Boom, there it is. And we'll wait and see who shows up and who does not show up and see how that works. But should be interesting tonight. This channel is specifically built for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to have a platform that will build off of and see where it ends up going and who ends up shopping and coming in here. This is not my regular channel. This is a channel that was specifically put up for only one thing, and that was to talk about things that are on the Lost Highway. So why I wait for people to come in? Well, I'm going to tell you what's the Lost Highway. The Lost Highway is, where did it come from? I didn't even know that the Lost Highway actually was a song. If you're familiar with songs, it was a song that was done back in the 30s. And then it was still built on after that, on and on and on. And so that's really where it came from, is that, it's this place where you see reality, right? The Lost Highway is a place where if you're a desert dweller like I am, you get out there in the middle of the desert, and it's a pretty incredible place, the middle of the desert. It's an awesome place because it's a place where people go and they find themselves. That's the wording, right? Or the place where they see the aliens, wherever that might be. That's more like Kansas, middle of Kansas, than it is anywhere else. But that is an interesting situation where you get to this place in your life that you start to look at things differently. So everything that I'm going to talk about on the Lost Highway coming up, now that we don't have anyone here, but we will have thousands of people soon because this will be important. So why did I build this channel specifically differently than the other 5 channels? I have 5 YouTube channels. Why is it different? Because if you're a YouTuber, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that if you stream, it will hurt your channel. It will not help your channel. It will hurt your channel. And it was hard at one time because you had to have a certain amount of subscribers to get to go live, which was important. That it was difficult. So you had to bring content into a channel that maybe it didn't fit. Right. Well, the good news is now I have one video out and that's it on this channel. Again, this channel is not made specifically for growing an audience or making money. This channel is specifically made to discuss the things that are going on today. It is here to discuss, well, why do I know that, or why don't I know that? All the stuff that we're going to talk about on the Lost Highway is going to be based on, history. So not what somebody thinks or what they might think. This is going to be facts, and it's not going to be fiction. My wife was somewhere the other day, and a guy told her that she was brainwashed, and I was thinking, it's so funny that people think that, when the truth of the matter is that we're all brainwashed. There's no one that's not. Yeah, I don't care who you are out there, you're brainwashed. To what degree? That's the call that's funny, right? The call that's funny is, to what degree are they brainwashed? What degree are you brainwashed? And that's kind of where it comes down to. There's not anybody on this planet that isn't brainwashed, because it depends on where you get your news. It depends on how you were brought up. It depends on where you went to school. It depends on what you do for a living. And the degree of the truth of the matter is, there's nothing really that's real. I mean, it's all an illusion to some degree. And why would I say that? Because it is. Well, why would I say that? Because history tells me it is. History tells me that there are, let's take, for example, the election, right? And people are like, oh, it's bullshit that they threw the election. There's bullshit that they didn't, and it's bullshit they did. And what's the truth of what's history say, for example? History says that they've been trying to throw uh, elections for 100 plus years. This is not something new. Now, to what degree and what degree of success they have, that's we don't know. We don't know. We don't have all the answers. But do has groups of people on all sides at one time or another tried to throw an election? Yes. Kennedy's, things like that. You goes back to the fact, at one time it was a lot harder. It wasn't technical as it is now. Now they can do things that just happen to happen technically, and it changes results. Well, why would they do that? Because they want their policies, right? And so is that the truth? Do they throw elections? They've always thrown elections. They've always thrown elections. The problem again is the question is how much the effort did they have in changing what the end result was. So so that's historically factual. That's not a myth or a lie. It's not a ifs, ands, or buts. So if you think that they don't, so you're brainwashed to some degree. Uh, but we all are. We get brainwashed from the time we're children. We're given these certain sets of rules of the way things are supposed to be. Are they that way? Not necessarily. How do we know that? Because we grow up and we learn. We learn what happens. It's uh, what's another illusion, for example, of what we're going to be talking about in the Lost Highway. One of the illusions that we're going to talk about in the Lost Highway, is this thought and theory came up in my thought process, and it is, so why do things go up? Why do things go up in the United States or around the world? Why are goods higher today than they used to be? Why does there have to be this increment of the level of what things cost? Why does that got to be? Because what should make something go up? So if a price goes up, what should cause that to happen? What should go up? Well, if you run out of some good, or to process some good that you need, it costs more money to do that. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So how many things go up because gas goes up? Well, why does gas go up? Are we running out of gas? No. So if gas is going up, why is it going up? Because we say it has to. It doesn't have to go up. Gas doesn't have to go up. You have a chicken. Is the chicken any different than the chicken was for 100 years? It lays the same eggs. Why is eggs more expensive than they used to be? Because some fictitious thought process is in somebody's mind that, well, we got to raise the prices. Well, why? Because everything else is going up. Well, why is everything else going up? Why really should it? Is the goods not able to be found? Is it cost more to process? Those are all things that we should look at in our lives, but that's not the truth. The truth is you go to Quick Trip to go get a gallon of gas, they raise it 10 to 15. So gas is raised by 15 cents or 30 cents a gallon every day. It's all just bullshit. And it's always been bullshit. So the world we live in today is related upon myth and mythology, because what should go up in prices? And so the channel of Lost Highway, we're going to talk about all this different stuff. We're going to go back in history. We're going to take a look at history. We're going to say, where does history line up today? And we're going to talk about all this stuff. And this is a channel, if you know me and you know who I am, you know that I'm into history and into adventure and into doing things like that. So this channel was created for one purpose, and that was only to look at the world as it is today, how to prepare for the world today, what you should be doing in this world today, and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. How am I going to survive this stuff that's coming? So another thought process we'll talk about, because we were going to talk about Operation Paperclip. If anybody knows about Operation Paperclip and knows what that is, what we're going to find out and what's happening today, what we're going to find out if we do the research and we do the history, which people don't want you to know, is that there's nothing that's new that's not been tried. There's nothing new out there under the sun that hasn't been going on for years. We're just more knowledgeable about it. And so what we're going to do on this program is we're going to look at all that stuff. We're going to talk about how we're going to prepare ourselves, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. What's the truth? What's not the truth? The biggest lie that's being told in America is that there is a Republican Party and a Democrat Party. There's not. There's not. That's a myth. That's not truth. The truth is they're the same. As one of my dear, dear friends used to say, uh, right wing, left wing, same bird, because it is. So the myth that we've been being sold is that there are these two parties, and this is the party of this party, and this is the party of the working man, and this is the party of business, right? We've always thought that. And that's all bullshit as well, right? Because it's not the truth. What does history tell us about the Democratic Party, for example? And this isn't a party either side. They're both dirty, right? So what does it tell us? So where did the Democratic Party come from? So the Democratic Party is the party of the South. So how would the minority voters end up being the party of the South when the South are the slave owners? Tell me how that makes any sense, but that's the truth. So how did this history get twisted where they're for the Democrats are for the working man? Well, weren't they the same people that had slaves? Well, we don't want you to know that because we're rebranded. We're rebranding this. So those are the things that we will discuss, and we'll get into all that stuff. We'll talk about how the government is doing, what the government's doing, how it's doing, what it does, how it does it. And again, what I'm going to caution you on is none of the stuff that we're going to talk about is new. As an historian, I go back as far as I can go back because I love history. But the problem with learning history is you start to realize that, well, wait a minute, that happened and it happened again and it happened again and it happened again. And so why is that? I mean, why does that happen? Because they get away with it. So now the exposure is out there. I'm going to throw this out there. And if anybody on here would like to answer this question, I'd like to know what it is versus what I think it is, right? And again, what you'll find out with me, this is not, I love this side or hate this side. I look at each and every one of these people as somebody that works for us, whether that's the regime that's there now or it's the regime that's going to be there in 2 years. They still work for us. And just because they're that guy or this guy, I don't love them and I don't hate them. Their job is to make sure that we're secure and safe and that we have a journey that we can climb on and go on and we can be safe in our own homes. So why do we have 10 million people in this country? Can anybody tell me that? Can anybody tell me why we have 10 million people that we didn't have? So why is that? So why would we have 10 million? And then the thing I'm going to ask you again, as a historian, when's the last time that happened? When's the last time that we had a massive influx of people coming to the United States in these, not this historical number as today, but when's the last time we had a massive group of immigrants come to this country and what was going on during that time? And then, there's Tom Reisig. Tom is here. What's up, Tom? So, when's the last time we had this many immigrants, right? When's the last time? And the last time we had this many immigrants, it was the Civil War. Because what they were doing, the North was taking guys off the boat who were thinking they were coming here for freedom, and they were putting them in blue uniforms and they were marching them into the Civil War. That's the last time we had immigrants by this time. And we're all immigrants, don't get me wrong. So we all at one time came here, right? We all at one time were immigrants, this whole country, with the exception of the natives. And actually the natives are immigrants as well. So I'll piss people off at that. You think they were manufactured here. Well, that's not what the bloodline says. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. It just means that that's where we have to end up getting to, is answer these questions that we're talking about right now. We're natives might have been natives to this land, but they weren't natives to this land, if that makes any sense. And nobody here is not an immigrant. Everybody's an immigrant. But we also have to be able to take care of these people. How many people that came in here legally and did it the right way and did what they were supposed to do, got taken care of and been given all the stuff that these people that are coming in are getting. And, and again, did my people get that? Did your people get that? Can we afford to do that? Again, when was the last time that 8 to 10 million people went through this country? When's the last time? And why? So why all of a sudden is this okay? So let's say that they just, they believe it. Hey, people, they just have to open the doors. We have to open the doors to everybody, let everybody come in. Okay, I don't have, I'm not saying that that's horrible. I'm saying that did everybody that come to this country get everything free? Is that, or did they work their asses off and did they pay taxes? Well, we all did. We all are. So we have this new group of people, and there's a lot of things that I have issues with that I don't accept or understand. It's not that I have, we've had a broken immigration system for years. Well, let's fix it. Well, why can't we? Why can't we fix it? The border's always been historically, let's go back to historically, the border's always been a nightmare. Okay. So we have the border to Mexico one way. Why do the Canadians have a wall up for us? Why is that? So why do the Canadians have a border wall? Why do they? Why don't they just why didn't it open? I mean, it's America, right? It's us, right? So why does the Canadians have a border? Why is that? Those are questions that you're like, okay, so why can't we figure out how to make an immigration system that works for everybody and allows people to come in, and a system that works? My question would be, they probably don't want it to. We've only had 100 years to figure out how to do it and how to allow people that have a dream to come in here. And thank goodness I had the opportunity to do that. I mean, why can't they figure it out? Because they don't want to. There's some purpose behind that. So that's the purpose of the Lost Highway, is always to look deeper into what's up, what's going on, what's the purpose in that. So forget about all these people coming in, other than the fact that what would be the purpose? So why would the purpose be? If it is that we just want to allow other people to have the same opportunities we had, well, then we need to promote that. And we need to talk about that. And we need to have a plan. Because see, here's my problem with that is that, okay, let's say that you're going to invite people over to your house, right? And let's say that you haven't really been doing well and you haven't been eating, right? So you haven't been eating really good, even at your own home. And then all of a sudden you're going to say, hey, we're going to let 10 more people come to the house and eat. Well, yeah, that's not this is not the time for you to come and bring more people to the house to eat, because guess what? We're not eating. And so here's my problem. When I see people that have fought for wars on the street, homeless, and I see kids hungry in the country already, and we can't take care of what we got, but then we're going to say 10 million people can come in here and get what we can't even give the people that are on the streets that are homeless and the veterans. What's that? See that, that's throws away the whole thought process. So you're bringing in 10 million people. If we could get 10 million people off the streets, which we can, because we've already proved that, because if we're saying we can bring 8 to 10 million people in here, then we could have got 8 to 10 million people off the street that are on the street and feed them and help them and try to get them back to life. Instead, we're just going to throw those people to the curb, and then we're going to bring in another 8 to 10 million people. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. So, what's the problem? Well, the problem is they don't want to fix the problem. The problem is it's bigger, it's deeper. It's again, when's the last time we had this many people come in at one time? Civil War. So what's that mean? Does that mean there's going to be another civil war? I don't know. But it's awful funny that all of a sudden they have brought in this whole group of people that without taking care of the ones we already have. I'm a believer that you take care of the ones you have, and then you open the door and you say, hey, here we are, man. Here we are. Here's what you got to do, though. Nothing's free. I mean, nothing's free. And so, but that's the whole myth of what the Lost Highway and the new Lost Highway is going to be talking about, is all that stuff. And then we're going to go back into history and we're going to say, hey, when's the last time this happened? When's the last time that happened? When's the last time that we had these issues or problems? One of the things that I wanted to talk about when I got off on, and you'll find out I'll go off on a lot of tangents. What you'll find out is that historically, the more you dig and the more you see, the more you realize that, well, wait a minute, something doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And not everybody's going to get this. They're just not. And this ain't for everybody. If I have 2 people, 20 people, 100 people, I don't even care. I'm not doing this because I want viewers. I'm doing this because I feel like, because of the work that I've done and the knowledge that I've acquired and what I've seen and what I've dealt with, I have a responsibility to the world to share historically why this stuff in the world today is not making sense. And it's not some hocus pocus dream or dream. It is what it is. And so all of a sudden, if you do enough history, then you realize, well, wait a minute, man, these guys, this is not normal. This doesn't make sense. It's all addition. And if it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up. And none of it adds up anymore. It doesn't add up anymore. So what was Operation Paperclip? So you guys out there, the historians, why I wanted to talk about that. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about. And so let's talk about wars, and then let's talk about why wars, wars are money-making propositions. Now, sadly, it costs a lot of people everything to be a part of the group, right? And I don't think anybody, if somebody's going to invade us on our land, I don't think anybody should not grab up and grab arms and do whatever they can to protect their homeland. But then past that, what ruling the world, what part of that is our problem or our job? I don't know. And that's something we'll discuss in depth here about. You think about every war that we've had, and you realize that wars are one thing. They're to make money. They're to make money. Now, if you're defending your shores and they're going to come get you, and you can't feel like you're safe because this group, they'll make those decisions. But man, putting people's lives out there for money and using that under patriotism is, I think, ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. And a lot of good men gave their lives for situations and scenarios. So you could argue that, hey, look at World War I. How did it start? Look at World War I. How did it start? If you know your history, how did it start? It's crazy how it started. It's crazy. And then that escalated into a world war. A world war. And then what happened was then we had World War II. And then what's funny about World War II is you had the Germans, who were probably the smartest group of people that have ever been put into one group or one country ever. Now, a lot of it had to do because they took all the scientists from all over Europe. So they grabbed all these geniuses and it wasn't because they came with them on, because they wanted to. They told them basically, this is what you're going to do. So you have the geniuses of the world that the Germans have as scientists. And the thing about the Germans is they had more technology. If Hitler would not been a meth addict, I don't know what would happen. If he wouldn't have lost his mind, it would have been bad. But that's not what happened. What happened to a lot of people in power. They lose control. Their vices get to them. And so here's these scientists. The United States realizes one thing. They realize that there is a ton of intelligence in these scientists that are there in Germany. And they're like, so they're getting at the end of the war, the last 3 to 6 months. They know what's going down. They're like, how are we going to get these guys? How are we going to get these scientists? Because if we don't, we're going to be fighting this war again. If Russia ends up getting all these scientists, then we're in big trouble. And so they hatched a plan between Britain and to get as many of these scientists they could away from the Russians. So they didn't get them. And they did a pretty good job. They did it's called Operation Paperclip. The reason it was called Operation Paperclip was because Harry Truman said that if any of, I can't use the N word because if you use the NA, then it's a keyword on this agenda, right? But you know what I'm talking about, the Germans, right? And if you were a part of that German extreme German party, you weren't allowed to be a part of this transfer of these scientists. Only ones that weren't a member of that distinct party of the Germans were not allowed to come to the United States. Now, other people in the government said that's crazy. If we don't get these guys, then we're in big trouble because these are the guys that know how to do jet propulsion, to do fuel, to make rockets, to do all this stuff. These are the guys that know how to do that. And so we put on a run to get these scientists at the end of the war to be able to bring them over. Now, Operation Paperclip, and Truman said you could he wouldn't let them in. So anybody that was a member of that party was not going to come in the United States. Well, what they did was they washed all these guys' records, all these scientists' records, and then they clipped it with a paper clip on the new sheet that was bogus that said that this scientist was not a member of that party. And now what we got in that was some spectacular stuff as far as we wouldn't even be who we are today. If you look at Russian technology, as good as some of it is, but as bad as some of it is, it's where we would be. We would be where they're at. As a whole, the United States was not smart enough, even in their ingenuity, not to the level of these guys that we brought over. And so, if you look at entire NASA program, you look at the thousands of different things that they did. If you look at a lot of the people in pictures of NASA, what you'll see is gentlemen would have huge scars on their face because they were members of the party, the juvenile party, that said that if you wanted to be a part of that group, you had to get cut in the face. And so they had massive scars. So there's these groups of these guys that have massive scars on their face because they were a part of this basically kind of secret organization. I'll put it that way. And so when you see these guys and you look at the pictures of the guys that ran NASA, we wouldn't have been on the moon when it wouldn't have been for these guys. I mean, we wouldn't have been on the moon. And the technology these guys brought to us made us who we are today. And without that, if those guys would have followed Truman's lead, guess what? Now, here's the other side of that. A lot of stuff that they do not talk about. They don't talk about the mind control they were using. They don't talk about the torture. They don't talk about these scientists that were doing these mind control things. They're not talking about the scientists that were doing media agenda, where they were doing propaganda, where they were using the things that they're using on us basically today. It's the same stuff. That's where it came from. So there's this whole group of these people that were doing these unbelievable, horrific scientific stuff that were a part of that came in the United States as well. Now, if you look at that transformation of intelligence and transformation of technology that happened after Operation Paperclip, you'll see why we were the first people supposedly on the moon. You'll see why all the stuff that changed, where we got so highly technical, changed. You'll see also how demonic we became, how dirty we became, how we were, doing things against our own people. Well, I say, the CIA was given, and the FBI, those groups of people, right? CIA is international, FBI is local. And so they were doing things that were horrific. They were out of control. We don't even know what they did to other countries. We don't know who they got rid of, how they put people in power. America doesn't understand. A lot of countries around the world hate us because of what the CIA and the FBI did. And so they have all this technology, and a lot of it's dirty, and a lot of it's mind control, and a lot of it's all this nasty psychological stuff that was going on, chemicals, chemical warfares, all the chemicals, germ warfare, all these things that now are affecting us today. That's where it started from. And so when you look at that, and you look at the things that have been going on, I mean, this is still the best country in the world, but it's not as good as it used to be. How's that? And when you look at what these groups of people, especially today, how politicized the whole government is, It used to be that you used to think, now it wasn't this way, but you used to think that this group here was controlling all this, right? And that this group here was controlling that, but they kept in checks and balances because and that's not true. I mean, they're doing stuff that's absolutely unbelievable. So is there aliens? Well, who knows? Who knows on that part? Because the government lies to us so much. They told us not too long ago there absolutely was, right? Well, did they do that just to take our mind off of the wheel over here, to push us over there, to use the propaganda? All the news outlets are completely, totally biased and all being run by either the government or the people that are running the government, because the government's not running itself. You've got big pharma, you've got these guys that got so much money and so many reasons to take on the world. And so when you see what's going on, you're going to start to realize that nobody's got to panic, but I would be prepared. I would be prepared. I'd be prepared to what's coming on. I mean, look. See, I believe that all this history has been written. So I have a story coming out. I got 2 or 3 different stories coming out, but one of the stories is going to be called the 4-Year War. And so what is that? That means historically we'll go back, and we'll go back every presidential 4 years. So throw out, there's no right, there's no left, there's just people that won world power, right? So when you look at that, you start to realize the 4-Year War. Every 4 years is completely calculated. It floats to the top, it floats to the bottom. You have the impression that one side is good and one side's bad. Now, if you're on the left, you think the right's bad. If you're on the right, you think the left's bad, right? That's the illusion that they're giving you out there. They're giving you this illusion. They're giving you this illusion that there's this war between us. And they give you this illusion of, well, that's the bad guy and this is the good guy. So one president comes in, what's he do automatically? Well, he goes and tears up everything that the other president did. And I don't care which side, it doesn't matter. So showing them that this is what the good guys do, and that was the bad guy. And then the new guys come in and say, that's what the asshole did before, and that's not what I'm going to do. And so, things like that. So, what do? We shut off the pipeline, the first thing. Well, what's that do? Well, that causes us to buy fuel from Venezuela. I mean, so again, what's that doing? It's causing a false tide, a false ripple. It's causing prices to go up when it's not real. When we have enough fuel ourselves that we can produce and we can do all that. So then they make up these things like climate control. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's not a possibility with all the vehicles out there that there would be some type of change in the atmosphere. But if you historically, again, look at it, we've always had these cooling and heat cycles throughout the last thousands of years since we've been able to really actually see it. And then the cores we've taken from the earth, we can tell. We can tell when the earth rotates and this area becomes a jungle and this area becomes frozen tundra. I mean, but all this is a calculated mess, this 4-year war. So these 4-year wars are just mythology. They're not real. There's no reality to any of this stuff. They tear it down to make you think, because again, you have these propaganda people that's been put in place for years. They've been doing this stuff for 80 years now, and they're good at what they do. And they're putting this agenda. And then they'll turn around and they'll say, well, this is the broadcast for these guys, and these are the broadcasts for those guys. And then all of a sudden you realize, well, wait a minute, those guys were these guys. And I mean, look at Twitter. One thing about Elon Musk, love him, hate him, it doesn't matter. But look what we found out the FBI was doing in Twitter. And everybody acts like that didn't even happen. And this is real. I mean, this is what the government did. Government did it on here too. They did it on this platform. I got hit by it. They said basically anybody that says a certain word or series, which they still do, is going to be thrown down. And that's what they're going to do. So that's the journey of the Lost Highway. So yeah, we'll journey on and upwards, and we'll throw stuff down and throw stuff out, and we'll see. Start being, careful what you see, careful what you do. Be prepared. Make sure that you have. I would have at least a month worth of supplies. After that ain't gonna matter anyway. It's not gonna matter. But at least your first 30 days won't be hell. So I'd prepare for that. It's gonna get dark. It's gonna get dark, but that's the way it's supposed to be. It always has gone that way. Look at any unit, again, what's history tell us? History tells us that they usually don't last as long. These, especially somebody that proclaims to be free. This doesn't last that long. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to change. And all you can do is have a faith. And if you have a faith, my message is always going to be, if you have a faith, whatever that faith may be, that's what's going to save you. That's what's going to help you. That's the way you're going to get out of this, is by having a faith. So that's my first thing. So on the lost highway, it's good to have some faith of some type. And whatever that is, you make that choice. I can't tell you what that is, because it ain't ever going to get easier. And so, if you think the illusion is that something's going to come in and change, well, we already know what's going to change. We already know who's getting paid. We know who's not getting paid. It's an interesting journey that we all have to take, and it just depends on if you're going to sell out or not. And most people do. We all, yeah, most people all do. I mean, you get in the land of America, and what is it, man? Debt, because you got to have the next thing and the next cool thing, and you got to chase the next door neighbors. You got to chase the world. You got to drink yourself to death. That's what's supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to be so focused on the fact that your ass is up in debt so much that you can't see straight. And so that's what your thought process is, that uh, you can't see it because you're so buried into it. And if you're buried into it, guess what? You can't see what the reality of it is. But that's what we hoping to do on the Lost Highway, is to awaken lost souls to the fact of what's going on, and be able to prepare yourself for whatever is coming. Whatever's coming, and that's where we're heading. And so we'll start off this channel with one person or 10 people or whatever. Again, this channel was put together for this sole purpose. I'm not going to do anything else on the Lost Highway channel other than talk about history and how it affects us today. And so when you look at things that you're not sure of, and you see how it's happening today, then our goal is going to be is to look at it historically. So how's this been? How did we do this 100 years ago? How did we do this, uh, 50 years ago? So how did we work this? How did we lose control? Is it the first time we've lost control? No. I mean, we've lost control numerous times in this country, and we've reeled it in. But hey, you've got to be prepared in this world to be able to deal with what comes at you. And again, that's why I tell everybody it's great to have a spiritual life. Now, spiritual life, not necessarily a religious life. That's another thing that we historically get confused, is that we automatically think that if somebody is a spiritual being, well, he goes to church. Well, no, not necessarily. What's the Bible really say about that? So all these things that are out there today, uh, that's what we're going to look at. But the thing about it is, if you know the history of today, let's just take the last one. Well, we dealt mainly in about 150 to 160 years. Plus, we do ancient stuff as well. Uh, but if you look at it, and you look at how things have rolled and how they went, this isn't the first battles of sides that we've ever had. I mean, I tell people, if you do your research, one of the funnest things to deal with is when you do your research and you realize that the shootout at the OK Corral with at Tombstone was the Democrats versus the Republicans. People are like, what? Yeah, this stuff is not new. That started the shootout at the OK Corral. So the more you know about this history, it's fascinating to me, because I always thought that was this was new. Well, this is the new problem, right? There's no new problems. It's still the same thing we've been doing. They've still been taking bribes in Washington, regardless which side's in control. It doesn't matter. They're on their own plan. They're not working for me, and they're not working for you. They're working for them. I mean, how is it fair that anybody in Washington can use other people go to jail for getting that information, and people in Washington, they can buy stocks with knowing what's going to happen, going to go left or right? That's ridiculous. I mean, where does that come from, right? Where does that come from? And so we'll delve into like all kinds of different things as we go down the road. We talked about Operation Paperclip if you're a historian, but if you're a historian and you like this, all I'm going to do is look at what's going on in the world today on this channel, and I'm going to say, well, how does that relate to what's happened in the past? For example, I mean, you can throw anything out. It's no different than in a sense, we talk about Spanish flu. So do the research on the Spanish flu if you're not familiar with it. And so you really see what happened. And we had 100 years to figure that out, and we didn't try because we didn't want to. So those are things, but that's not anything new. That's what they did. That's what they do. And all we can do is protect ourselves. Well, how can we protect ourselves? Well, we've been surviving these regimes for years, and I don't think that regimes off to get better anytime. But how can I use history to be able to help me? A buddy of mine does primitive life ways. So Jeff, he teaches people how to be able to live exactly like they used to live 1,000 years ago. And I hope to God we don't revert back to that. It wouldn't be to that degree because there's too much technology. But could it possibly happen? Yeah, and I think you should be. I think anybody that's not able to understand at least basic survival skills, you're kind of missing the boat. And I think anybody that does not have protection of some type, I won't get into it, but you're kind of living on the edge. And there's two things that we talk about on that too is, well, what could happen? Well, power outage that could happen by natural causes, could be a natural disaster, could be a Hurricane Katrina. It doesn't necessarily mean it's some evil force or some dark wave, right? Uh, But are you ready if that happens? I mean, if that happens, are you ready to go? Are you prepared to have some situation? Let's just say natural disaster, because historically we can walk through that. Look at Katrina historically. And are we still ready? Are we ready if the power grid goes out? Well, we weren't ready at Katrina, and I doubt if, what did we learn from that? Nothing. We didn't learn anything from it. What you need to learn is are you ready for that? Are you prepared to be everything off for 30 days? Could you do 30 days? And if you can do 30 days, uh, then you're in good shape. Do you have 30 days supply in the house? And are you prepared? And if somebody came up the street and wanted your food, would you have to give it to them, or would you be able to defend yourself? Those are questions that I tell everybody to ask themselves, you know. And so we've got into it. For a lot of people are passing through here, right? And a big thing about me is this. We're all immigrants, so don't get me wrong. Yeah, we're all immigrants. We were all at one time or another put here, and even the natives are immigrants. They came from somewhere. Their theory is they didn't, and that's okay. They can have that, but that's not what DNA says. DNA tells us where we're from, and I don't care which breed or group that is. What historically is where they came from, right? So we're all immigrants. But again, can we take care of ourselves? So, and again, I'll say this again because we're getting people floating in and here out numerous times, and that is that, you know, how could we bring 10 million people in this country when we got more than 10 million people that are homeless and they're starving that are actually veterans? How can you do that? So, well, you can do that because your whole purpose really isn't that you want to be a good American and bring these people in, because all these major cities that were open to all that are all saying we can't take anymore. Well, what's that? You said you wanted all of them. Well, we can't take anymore. Well, so what are they doing with 10 million guys and gals? So what are they doing with them? So what is their, and again, I guess here's where I'm from. I don't remember getting any in my family tree getting support. Maybe we did and I wasn't aware of it. But okay, come in, world's open, go to work, go to work. Well, we skipped all the jobs outside the United States. Well. So what are we going to? Well, they could be truck drivers. Well, Tesla's going to build a truck, drives itself. They're already trying to get the cars, right? You know, uh, and so it's like, see, none of it makes sense. So I'm baffled by all of it because none of it makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. So again, I'll go back over what I talked about earlier, and that was, when's the last time we had historically this type of massive immigration? When's the last time this happened? Why did we do it? So all of a sudden, why did we go around the world and tell people to come in, right? Come in. Civil War. The Union needed more people to defeat the South. That's the last time we had immigration like that. Pretty incredible to think about. So what's that mean? I don't know. I can't. I can just tell you what the facts are. I can't read these people's mind. It ain't because they love these people coming in. It ain't because they care about that. Another thing I'm going to tell you is that I don't understand either is that I don't think even my friends from either side, either party, voted to have 10 million people brought in here. I don't think any of them did. There might be a flu lunatics on one side or the other on the far extremes, but the basic people in here, did you know your government was going to be flying people across the United States for years? 8 to 10 million of them. The largest airline in the United States is not one that you've ever heard of because they're flying people all over the United States. And not only do I know this to be a fact, I know people that do it. So this isn't some myth of what's going on. It's the truth. So I'm flying 8 to 10 million people in here, and then I got to go by homeless guys on the street that are crazy and out of control, and we can't take care of them, but we can bring in and take care of 8 to 10 million people. How's that even work? Man, I don't even get that. That doesn't, there's no math that you're going to tell me that makes any sense. That's going to make some sense of that. And again, the last time we did that was it so we could get more people. And that is basically what won the war for the North. There's a lot more in depth than that. That's a simplified version. But why the North won the war is they didn't run out of people, because as soon as you got off the boat, they put a blue uniform on you and they shoved your ass right on the battlefield and said, you know what, dude, if this land is good enough for you to come live at, it is good enough for you to die. And so they had the ability to keep pushing people in. And so that's the reason that went that direction. And so that's the last time it happened, was for that purpose. So what's this purpose? I mean, what is the purpose? So when you ask somebody, what is the purpose? And it's just unbelievable that this is happening and nobody's doing anything. And they know that. They know you're not going to do anything. Well, I am. At least I'm going to get on this YouTube and I'm going to take a channel and completely do nothing on this channel but talk about the problems of America and talk about what we've done in the past 100 years ago. The border is a fascinating place. And I'm going to say this again to anybody. Why does Canada have a wall up? Why do they have a wall up and we don't have a wall up? Why is that? Do the Canadians know that we suck or what? I mean, why did they put a wall up all the way across, but we don't have a wall? Why is that? I mean, and this isn't a pro-wall, anti-wall. This is just, why do they have a wall? I mean, they're the Canadians. So why do they have a wall? And then why don't we have a wall? Those are hard to say. And for a long time, it wouldn't have been for immigrants, especially, I mean, we wouldn't have jobs filled. We wouldn't. But what are you going to tell to the guy? So you let 10 million people in here. A lot of them don't speak English, so they don't have an advantage. One of the biggest things that keeps a guy or gal down is not being able to use the language in their benefit. You can't do deals. You can't, unless you stay in your little family of your group, whether you're Chinese or whatever group that you might be in. And when you stay in that circle, you can't get out of it to advance yourself. So in Arizona, if you're from Arizona or not, we have a lot of landscapers. They do a great job. They work their asses off. Now tell them that they're going to have to be in competition after they've been paying taxes. They have to compete with people, 50 times more people that ever been existing to do that, because that's a job that people outside of the United States just coming in can do. And or will they do it because they don't have to, because they're getting free? So how does any of this even actually work today? And it doesn't. And that's why I felt like finally, you know what, I'm going to take the platform of the Lost Highway and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about past stuff. We're going to talk about new stuff. We're going to talk about how things in our history have affected us today. The reality of it is, and the thing I've thrown out earlier, and I'll throw it out again, is that so take this for example. Chicken's same chicken that they same chicken they've had in 1800s, right? Same chicken. Chicken ain't changed. Chicken does the same thing it used to do. It gets eaten, and some of them lay eggs, right? It hasn't changed. It's the same. They come out the same way. They started the same way. So why aren't chickens the same price that they used to be? Why? Well, fuel's higher. Why is fuel higher? Are we running out of fuel? Well, no. They say we can't run out of fuel. So if fuel isn't higher, why are we getting charged more for it? Well, we got to go to Venezuela to get it because we shut off our oil here. Oh, so we created a fake front of a fake need to be able to then, now when the chickens have to go to market, they got to be in a vehicle that's being with fuel that's not even less than it's ever been. And we created this shortage, this fictitious shortage that's not even real. So that's how this world works is what should be higher? What should be higher are things that we all of a sudden need because we have advanced, because that's still going to happen. And we may need some technology. Okay, I get that. Technology is going to cost money. And so this new technology, this thing here, right, is going to cost a certain amount of money. Okay, so that should be X amount of dollars. Chicken ain't different. Nothing's changed. It's fictitious. It's all smoke and mirrors, all of it. Now, don't get me wrong. If all of a sudden fossil fuel got where it was horrible or something changed where we actually had to spend more money doing it, I get that. I get that. I get that not everything can realistically stay the same. So a tree is a tree. Well, but now you have to cut it down and you have to, it's going to cost more fuel. Well, why is it going to cost more fuel? Because now they're just charging more for the fuel. So now, they just make more money. The government gets kickbacks. The people in Washington, they lobby. And so all this is just made up bullshit is all this really is. And so nobody's ever broken that down to me before like that. It came to me of the fact that, well, what needs to be higher? Well, again, don't get me wrong. Lithium, for example, things like that. I understand. Okay, so that thing should be less. But then we'll have the Chinese make it for a third or a tenth of what we can make it for, but then we'll charge you the regular price. So, I mean, none of this stuff pencils. None of it does. None of it does. It's all fictitious. I was trying to think of the guy from Omaha yesterday, and he made all his money in the car business. In the car business. Because it's such a scam. And if you're in the car business, I know what I'm talking about when I talk about vehicles. I know, right? But that's just the way the system works. Well, why don't they just charge you $5,000 for a car? Because if they can make 10,000 because you don't know what you're doing. Timeless tourist. I got to get Dean off here. Dean doesn't know I'm live, but he'll find out. But see, that's the deal. We don't look at that. We don't look at those things. It's all, a lot of this world is a scam. I hate to tell you, there's not a guy out there that hasn't done a program. I was a finance manager for years. I can tell you what scamming is. I can tell you what that's about. And you know why? Why do you do it? Well, all of a sudden one day you make a lot of money, and one day you're like, my God, you make a lot of money. And you're like, I want to make a lot of money because I want all these things that everybody else has got. And all of a sudden, you put yourself in debt, right? Because you got all this money, and you got, and this, it's all just a cycle. So how do you save yourself? Well, that's what we'll be talking about in the future on this channel. We'll be talking about that. We'll delve into different situations when I get more people. This was the first time I went live on this channel. I've been live. I've done 350 shows live on other channels. And this is, again, a brand new channel. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because that's the journey that we're on right now, is to keep this Lost Highway channel. And what is the Lost Highway, if you don't know? The Lost Highway is a place where I try to drive in the middle of the road. Now, why would I drive in the middle of the road? because if something comes at me, I can go left or I can go right, and I can go far enough and I can swerve enough where I'm not going to get run over or run into. When you lean heavily to one side or the other, it doesn't matter what else. The only thing you got to the end is a ditch. And that's just not a good way to live your life. I look at every circumstances that's out there. I don't group anything together. I don't put all my money on the table at one time. I look at it, I evaluate it. I challenge myself to be open-minded enough to realize what's going on, not enough to be, as a conspiracy theory, anymore. There's really not conspiracy theories anymore. There's enough proof that's what's out there. Here we are, we're talking about JFK that happened in all that years, and we know what happened, but nobody will just say, well, yeah, we all know, but we're not going to say, well, we've been in the dark for how many years now? And so we don't think that happened. We don't think all these situations. We're just getting ready to find out what really happened. But the problem is that everybody is so focused and buried into this programming, right? And so that's why this channel started, was to be able to talk about like, not a conspiracy theory is a thought process is based on not reality, in my opinion, right? It's a thought, right? But we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about facts. We're going to talk about facts that we know, what we don't know, and what we do know, and how history is played out. How does it work like this? How is history? How can we look at history today and be able to evaluate that and lay it down and be able to say, hey, well, I know that. Well, I'll talk about. See, the problem is everybody gets so butthurt because they have got you programmed and trained so much that you think that there's a right and a left, and you think that, oh, this is the good party and that's the bad party, and these guys are the same yahoos that get the same money from Pfizer or whoever. They both get paid, they both get the money, and they just act like they're fighting each other and they don't like each other. And it's just a game to keep you off balance. And that's always been a game. It's just more evident today than it ever was. And so what I look at today is, let's look at each, and I don't care who's president. I mean, I care about so what have you done? So what are you doing? And I don't care who that is. I'm still going to have the same challenges. I'm not going to be happy with somebody doing stupid shit. I'm not going to be happy with that regardless. I'm not sucked into one or the other. And we will talk about certain parties and what they stand for and what they really are and how they got switched and changed. And, I'm a big Theodore Roosevelt fan. I love Theodore Roosevelt because he was one of the few guys that had morals that was still in politics. And he definitely was not a saint by no means. They don't make those. And he even said, I joined whatever party I can get elected. That's what I do. I joined any party that would get elected. I could get elected. So if I get elected in this party, I became that party. If it was this party, and that's there. So if you think of it that way, that's still all that's really going on. Is all they're trying to do is get elected. Well, why would that be? So then they can go make the money, because we all know that they make a lot of money. Now, the only problem that they're going to deal with is they sell us out in our country. They sell us down the road, is that eventually it's going to catch up with them. That this is going to, you can't have the crime that we're having and the world that we're having, and you can't see that it's going to not catch up to them and their children. And they will pay the price just like we do. But all we can do right now is protect ourselves and save ourselves. And that's what we'll be discussing. I'll try to be on this channel at, it used to be here at 7:00, and then I would do the Lost Highway late at night. The Lost Highway, we would talk a lot about stuff, a lot of stuff that was near and dear to my heart. But I think right now what I want to do is, and again, I could care less if I got 5 people on here or 100. I have other channels. I have 4 other channels that I care about how many people I get on them. And I don't talk about things we're talking about. I talk about just history. But on this channel, we're going to talk about how that equates to us today. And there's Smiley Chavez. What's going on, Smiley? The government has abandoned our veterans. Our motorcycle club is trying to help. Running out of the resources, Albuquerque City is a joke. The way they're treating the homeless is ridiculous and disgusting. Here, I'll give you my 2 cents on that. And again, if you wasn't here earlier, I'm big on this immigration thing's got my ass chapped because let's take care of who we got. Let's take care of Americans before we create new Americans. Not that we shouldn't create new Americans, but why don't we say, okay, well, wait a minute. Let's get our shit together. Let's figure out what our problems are. Let's get our veterans off the street. let's feed the people. Let's figure out what we need to do. Let's get the crazy people off the street and put them back in where we used to have crazy farms. Okay. And that was Reagan that kicked them out. Okay. So again, you'll find out I'm not pro anybody. I'm looking at what the truth is. And let's figure this out before you bring in 10 million people. Now, if you can support 10 million people, if you can support 10 million people, then you can get these veterans off the street, and you can get these people that, you got a certain amount of people you can't fix, but you got a lot of people that if you help them, you at least give them dignity because they've either served this country. I mean, everybody had a dream. So what are you going to do to all these 10 million people when they collapse and crush? You're gonna kick them to the curb? Yeah, you are. I mean, that's the problem. And I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous that we have homeless, right? And I come from a family of two grandfathers that died in the ditch homeless, so I understand that. And this isn't a new problem either. This is an old problem. But again, if you wouldn't have brought in 8 to 10 million people that you're supporting, that's the key thing. We're supporting these people. How? How can we do that? Who signed up for that? Nobody. Nobody signed up for this. Nobody signed up for hotels and buses and flights. They're flying them out of Yuma. They're flying them out of Dallas. I know it to be a fact. And it's like, I'm getting all wound up. But it's like, let's take care of the guys that are here. Let's take care of the citizens, the Americans that are here. Instead of the guys that, are working extremely hard to make a living, and you just added 10 million people to their jobs. So you created a whole nother minority group. I mean, what I hope happens is that where I hope this blows up in their face is that the people that are here now that are seeing this of all races, colors, and creeds bond together and say, you know what, we ain't taking this shit. And so now you basically know why I started Lost Highway back up again, was because I believe that through unity. Here's the thing that hit me today, and I'm a little wild on stuff and this stuff, but you know what? I've decided the world is all the same. Okay. If you're in China, if you're in Germany, if you're in Russia, there ain't no difference between us, man. We are all the same people. What's different? Radical religion, governments have all brainwashed us into thinking that we're all the enemy. But tell me a person that has any sanity at all that doesn't care for his children and his family and all those things that are important. We're all the same. I've met everybody. The people that aren't brainwashed anymore because they're out of that communism or whatever that might be, they want the same things. And, I don't blame the people from wanting to come here, go to South America and the shitholes they have down there and the death machines that are going. I get it. So I get it. We just can't take everybody when we can't take care of what we got. If you're an American now, you come first. I hate to say it, but that's how I feel. I feel that if you're already here, let's take care of who's already here. We get them covered. Then we say, okay, let's open the doors up, but let's have a plan and let's have a system to be able to educate them, to be able to allow them to come in society with a chance. I saw a video on TikTok where all these guys, this guy that's in the hood, he's talking about the new breed of people in the hood. Look at these guys on the corner. I mean, that used to be us a certain amount of years ago. And now we've evolved out of that because we've become educated and we've worked hard and we've done all the stuff that we've been told to do. And now we have opportunity. And now this new regime's coming in. And they don't like it either. I mean, it ain't fair to any of us. And how could this happen? How could you have this whole system of jets, planes, trains, hotels to get all these people in this country? How could this happen? And here's the other thing, and I'm going to throw this out there. There was a time I'm watching videos. I'm writing a lot of music lately, and I'm watching this video about the pandemic and all these people and all this stuff that you had to do. You had to do all this stuff. or you weren't going to, if you didn't do this, you didn't get a job. If you didn't do this, you didn't have that. And then they shamed you if you didn't do that or this, right? And then they let 8 to 10 million people that we don't even know who they are. We've done no vetting at all, none, into this country, and left the Vietnam vet, the Iraqi vet, all the vets on the corner and ain't taking care of them. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me. And so again, that's what this is, what the Lost Highways are going to be all about. We're going to talk about all this stuff, and then we're going to go back into history and we're going to say, well, where did this happen? You know, where do we see where this happened, where that happened? You know, we haven't even got into sports either. I stopped watching sports, man. I just quit. I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you this story anyway. I wasn't going to get into this, but you know, when I saw my beloved Suns and I saw that game with the Lakers, and I said, that's the most blatant sign of somebody cheating that I have ever seen. And they have these cameras and they have replay, and all they had to do was go back and go, okay, he didn't even have the ball. Now, why is that important to me? Yeah, all it meant was they were going to go to a game that wasn't really a game yet, but it showed me that it's not, it's being contrived. It's not real. This is fake. This is entertainment. This is not real. These teams aren't fighting each other to win to the degree. And now that there's betting on these games, and you're going to tell me that they're not going to rig them, you know? And it's kind of like somebody throwing elections and things like that. To what degree, we don't know yet. We don't know. There's always been cheating. This isn't new. History tells us there's a World Series that got thrown, okay, from cheating. Another great story I'm going to tell you is historically is this too. So Tombstone, the great Tombstone that everybody knows about, and the Doc Hollidays and all these guys, right? They're not even, nobody even remembers them. Tombstone's blown away. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that any of this stuff happened. And there is a fight in California. And there is a referee that gets called out because they say he threw the fight. And when they look back on his history to see who this guy was, his name was Wyatt Earp. And all of a sudden, all these doors opened back up and history came to the front. And all of a sudden, the momentum started. But just to go to show you, you know, how this stuff works around sideways and weird, you know, it's intriguing. And we'll study that. We'll talk about things like that. I love history because it isn't what we think it is. Okay. It isn't what we think it is. If you really look at it. And one thing you'll realize too, when you're doing history a lot, is that you got to figure out how much is fictitious, you know, and it's crazy. And again, most of it's just a propaganda machine just to try to get you to think a different way, to work a different way. But you know what you can do is stay strong, stay spiritually fit, mentally fit, and go on and know that there's a bigger world than this one, and do the best you can do while you're here. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. This is the first edition of the Lost Highway, and it will roll and it will get momentum. And our goal is to figure out ways to see what the truth is, and to figure out a journey and a path that's going to be the best for all of us. And I appreciate each and every one of you that stopped in, and we will do this on a regular basis. And that's all I have. As I always say, if I can figure out how to get out of here, I will say what I always say, and that is adios, amigos. You guys have a great evening, and I thank you, and see you again soon. Maybe I'll get out of here. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just have to stay here all night. It's hard to say. End stream. It's not ending the stream. Thanks, Smiley. What's up? I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. I'm not getting out of here, so I'll just have to kill it. Adios. Thanks. We are not getting out of here at all. We may not ever be leaving. Well, we'll just have to stay out here and keep moving until I can figure out how to even shut this thing down. Never had this problem before. They don't want me to leave, or they've locked me down. The first video we've done, we've been hijacked. The first video. I'm still clicking. I've never seen this thing freeze up like this before. But I do appreciate you, but we'll get out of here eventually. I'll figure something out. Never had this happen at all. So we'll continue to keep working on trying to get out of here. I might have to just go on for a couple more hours. I've never had this thing freeze up like this. I know how to do this. We'll just shut it down. But again, thank you. And I'll get it to go down now. Here we are. Now we'll say adios, amigos. Well, maybe we won't. Maybe the man is taking over the machine. Maybe that's what's going on here. First one out there, like, we're not letting this guy out of here. We're not letting this happen. I've never had this happen. I've never had it where I couldn't even shut it down. This is kind of interesting. Maybe there is some forces above that are keeping us from doing this. I might have to unplug this thing. I've never had this happen. I've never had this happen ever. Interesting. I've never been able to not shut my computer down. My mouse is working. So, oh, this is interesting. It won't even let me shut. It will not even let me shut it down. Am I going to have to kill the whole system? YouTube wants you to just keep. They like it so much that they're saying just keep going. You guys can hear that. It's just not letting me out of here. I don't even know. Well, we're going to have to figure out. We're going to have to go to some degree. It's not going to be good. Well, we'll figure it out.